It was pretty unreal. It was the first time I was afraid of nature like that.
The biggest river in the country had burst its banks, claiming the lives of 20 people. Everyone in Bosnia and Herzegovina knows where they were in that fateful week in May 2014.
We'd been visiting my grandmother in Čeľinac and were driving back on this road. The water had risen almost up to the road. I had my mother in the car, and it was like a scene out of a disaster movie.
The town of Čeľinac, as this footage shows, was hardest hit by the flooding, but its impact was felt all across the region. The estimated damage was equivalent to nearly 15% of the country's GDP. Tens of thousands of people were forced to flee their homes, including this family. Looking at footage of the disaster brings back difficult memories.
Everything we had was destroyed. It was tough. We brought the children to safety. When I saw our house the next day, I wept.
The catastrophic flooding 5 years ago was a huge shock. Now the United Nations Development Program is helping to bolster the region's flood defenses.
First thing that we need to have is a good decision-making, is a good base for decision-making. We develop flood hazard and flood risk maps, we are developing flood risk management plan, we are creating flood forecasting and early warning system.
An immediate aim is to reduce the areas at risk of flooding and protect the local population. The UNDP is also funding a project to help shore up the Vrbas River. Nermanja Junkic is a field associate for the UN program and helps coordinate with construction companies, residents, and local authorities. This building site is located just outside Banja Luka, home to 180,000 people.
The United Nations Development Program is helping to shore up the banks of the Vrbas River. We've also removed the silt from the riverbed. That will allow large quantities of water to flow through unimpeded and quickly. And that will help protect the city.
Banja Luka, which is the country's second biggest city, is just a few kilometers downstream. Bosnia and Herzegovina was created in the aftermath of the wars in the 1990s that saw the breakup of Yugoslavia. The young, small state has struggled economically. Funding for public works is in short supply, and research institutes are also affected. The country's water management agency is based in a couple of portable containers. Most of the technical equipment was provided by the UN. What will happen when the project ends?
Our funding comes from the public sector budget. The money for equipment maintenance is extremely limited. There has been a slight increase, but it's an issue the authorities should be taking more seriously.
The UN-backed project has installed 29 measuring points along the Vrbas River. Their sensors supply data to the early warning system currently in the pipeline. Here, too, the catastrophic flood remains fresh in people's memories.
On May 16, 2014, the Vrbas River was up to here, 8 meters 16.
That's the sound of the new sirens installed to warn residents of Čeľinac of possible flooding. All high-risk areas now have an emergency plan in place and trained disaster response teams. But their equipment is several decades old.
The disaster protection law set the percentage of the budget that each local government should allocate to civil protection. Unfortunately, that's not being put into practice here or anywhere else at the moment.
Climate change is exacerbating the problem. With the weather going from one extreme to another, torrential downpours are becoming more frequent, as are floods. The rain is often followed by prolonged periods of drought. Local farmers are already feeling the effects. Asim Juliman grows fruit in his field and has seen his harvest decrease year after year.
Last year, it rained for the entire summer. It rained until September. My raspberry bushes died. And the year before, we had problems due to drought.
The natural beauty of this corner of Bosnia and Herzegovina is deceptive. Flood defenses are now vital to the survival of communities here.